Let's get you performing this without pain, problems, and setting you up for progress. Let's coach you on the bench press. I'm going to run you through the setup, the movement, alternative exercises, as well as some injury prevention. In the setup, we will cover how to set up the rack, where to place yourself on the bench, your foot placement, it matters, and a few details about the bar that are going to help later on down the line. In the movement section, we're going to cover back position, unracking the weight, arm direction and hand position, how to drive the weight, and your movement pattern. I'm also going to give you 4 different exercises that would improve the bench press or get you bench pressing to begin with. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you 7 key areas to focus on injury prevention. Let's get your rack set up and you ready to bench. Couple of things you want to observe about racks. First of all, this one's a J-hook rack. This one's adjustable. It's quite adaptive to the position that you want to be able to get yourself into. The other type is the prefix, the ones that have the J-hooks built into them. They're not as versatile and they can cause a few setup problems. So just be mindful of the type of rack that you're going to be using. So first of all, when it comes to the rack in itself, we're going to set the bench up and we're going to set the bar up so that we're in the correct position to begin with. Now, key point, when you're setting this bar up, you want the bar just slightly shorter than full arm's length. So when you unrack the bar, you clear these J-hooks as it comes out. And also as you're looking up at the bar, your eye line wants to be hitting level with the bar when you're laid on the bench. I'm going to demonstrate this right now for you. So first of all, climbing in, just watch your head as you go underneath the bar. Looking straight up at the bar, the position that you want to be on the bench is usually your glutes want to kind of sit where the base pad, the bottom pad, meets the back pad. So your eye line wants to be hitting the bar pretty much straight over eye line at this point. Now, this bar is set up for my height currently, and I have different positions on this bar using the knurlings that you can actually place your hand positioning. Now, every bar is going to be set up slightly different. Most bars have a center knurling. They have then the outer knurling, which is where you'd use for your deadlift. And then slightly further out, you've got a little ring that runs around the bar. Great for the hand positioning as to where you're going to be frequently using this bar to place the fingers. So for me on this one, it's the ring finger around the ring on the bar, and that's where I'd firmly grip the bar. Few key points to bear in mind here. I'm looking straight up at the bar. The bar is set height-wise within maximal stretch, so as I go to push the bar up, I'll be able to unrack this and clear the J-hooks without anything being obstructed. My ring fingers are placed around the rings of the knurlings on the bar, giving me a just outside of shoulder width grip on the bar. As I go to grip the bar, I'm going with a under thumb hook rather than an over thumb hook. Now you will see people over thumb with this, and when they do, it tends to bend their wrist slightly backwards. This is so that they're driving from the palm of their hand, and it can become very unstable and very unsafe too. So just be careful. The best thing to do is get used to going with an under thumb grip so you can lock onto the bar, so you've got full control what's happening with the bar in your grip. So for safety, ring fingers around the bar, thumbs underneath. I've got an outside of shoulder width grip. My eye line is looking straight up at the bar, and with my feet I'm going to pull them just back slightly so I've got just past the 90-degree bend at the knee. Now, me being in this position naturally creates an arch underneath my back. Exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for the base of your lats, stroke your scapular area, your glutes, and your feet to be in contact with a platform at all times. So whether that's the floor or the bench, you don't want to be lifting anything else off the floor to get the maximum amount of drive out of this movement that you would physically need. So unracking the bar, we're going to go eye line outside of shoulder width on the knurling ring. We're going to push straight up, and as the bar goes up, we're going to pull the bar away, clearing the J-hooks. Pull the bar out. Right, from this position, there's a few things you need to keep in mind. I've still got the arch in my lower back. I can feel the weight now driving into my shoulder blades to my upper back. I've got this weight neutral over my arms, so I'm not swinging too far back and I'm not leaning too far forwards, creating that pull forwards or that overhead instability. Right, now we're going to jump into the movement. So quickly just jumping in, just before you unrack this bar from this rack, there's a few things you want to be aware of. Now, at this point, there's a few things that I'm going to do with my hands, my elbows, and my shoulders just before I'm about to start bench pressing. So first of all, I'm going to grip the bar really tight and slightly try to bend that. As you can see from my elbows, they're traveling now at 45 degrees. I'm going to pull my shoulder blades together and down, which increases the gap between my back and the bench in that lower arch in my back. And just as I'm about to press, my arms are going to travel outwards at 45 degrees. I'm not going to flare my elbows and come down to the side, and I'm not going to tuck them too deep in and try to press from my lats. I'm going to travel 45 degrees, and as I bring that bar down, I'm bringing it down to the lower part of my sternum, which is basically where the V part of your rib cage sits. And as I drive, I've got my back firmly pressed into the bench, and I'm going to push straight up and slightly back. So as you can see, this bar doesn't travel straight up when you do a bench press. It comes back to eye line. So it comes down and moves forward slightly, and as you push, it comes back up and over eye line. The reason being is because triceps are activated at the top end, and 90% of your chest is activated at the bottom end. And by doing so, you don't get full complete stretch in your chest with a bench press because you can't get full range by the bar contacting with the chest. So what you are looking for is to get that bar right the way down to your sternum. So just a bit right at the top of your abdominal, right in that V part of the rib cage. And as you do, the bar wants to contact if possible. And then as you go to drive, you will push up and slightly back. Now my elbow positioning goes straight out towards you at 45 degrees. So it comes down into this position here, rather than elbows flared upwards, which is really going to damage the shoulders and overstretch the chest, or too tight in, which is then I'm trying to press into the lats and back up. That's all triceps at this point. What you're looking for is 45 degrees, elbow travels out at 45 degrees, comes down to the sternum, drive up and back into the eye line. The last thing in this section of movement is what happens with the hands and the wrist. Now, when you're holding the bar, most people you'll see try to drop the bar over their wrist because they try to push from the palm of the hand when they do this. What you want to be doing is really rotating that wrist up and stacking the wrist over the elbow. It's going to give you the most amount of drive to get this bar moving, especially when you start to load weight onto this. You're also going to gain the most amount of stability by being in this position. If that bar is pulling the wrist back, you get wrist strain, you get elbow tendonitis because it's externally rotating whilst you're moving at the same time. You'll end up with a whole host of problems, which we're going to avoid in the injury prevention section. So alternative exercises, what other movements can you be doing that's going to help you either get bench pressing or improve your bench press? Here's some to help. First of all, a cable chest press. Probably the most versatile that you can use to get used to shifting some weight with your chest, getting that chest activated. Now, a cable chest press, you would set yourself up in exactly the same way, but you're in a seated position when you do so. You're going to drive in exactly the same way, elbows at 45 degrees, pushing straight forwards, but it's just going to give you that versatility to be able to activate your chest and get used to pushing weight that might be slightly lighter than a 20 kilo bar to begin with. The next one then is a dumbbell flat bench press. A dumbbell flat bench press is going to be great for opening the range up. So as I mentioned, with a bar, you can't get to that full range because the bar stops and hits the chest. With a dumbbell, you clear that distance. So if you're weaker in maybe the lower region or the extended region, you can work on these strengths and weaknesses to help improve so you can get bench pressing safely and effectively. If this is something that you want to try and do from home to begin with, if you want to build some confidence first, the standard press up. Get on your knees, that's going to make it a little bit easier. Hands in front of the shoulders, exactly the same position that you're going to be setting yourself up with the bar, and get used to doing a press up. Arms travel back at 45 degrees, push into the floor to drive into the floor, to push away, activate the chest. Once you figure that out, you'll build a little bit of strength, maybe move up to the preloaded barbells that you find in gyms before you jump onto the 20 kilo barbell. And last but not least, the Smith machine. Now, while the Smith machine does lock you into a position, so you won't be able to pull the bar in and out, you will just lift up and hook off, it will give you the safety to know that all you need to do is move that bar in one direction. You don't have to worry about the stability. You don't have to worry about it contacting anything else. You've got the stability of the bar locked into the machine. You've got the safety of the J-hooks at the flick of a wrist. Everything's there to get you set up on a Smith machine to begin with before you start free weight loading a barbell for bench press. Any one of those movements will help you improve either stability, ability, or load to begin with to get used to the load of a 20 kilo barbell and then move up progressively from there. Don't try jumping up the weights too quickly. Start with maybe the 1.25 kilograms, then load up maybe the 2.5 kilogram plates. But the second you feel like load is able to go onto the bar, don't wait. Feel secure. So long as your foundation is set at your 3 contact points, your feet, your glutes, and your back, your arm positioning is traveling at 45 degrees, and you've got that wrist stacked over your elbow, you're good to bench. And last but not least, injury prevention. So the first thing we're going to cover is shoulder mobility. It's going to be the shoulder and the chest that's going to be the most restrictive for you in this particular movement. So a couple of areas you want to focus on the shoulder are mainly the rotator cuff. So its ability to be able to shift inside of itself without causing any pain or impingements. You can use a super band, anchor it to a frame and give yourself some external rotations. So just getting that whole shoulder joint and rotator cuff warmed up. I do a lot of these laid on the floor actually on a mat with a dumbbell, very light one. Just getting that range of movement warmed up so the rotator cuffs aren't feeling strained when you come in to load the bar. and they're not taking the brunt of the weight. Now the next one is your back arch. Now a lot of people will find that the lower back can cause a little bit of an impingement when they create this arch. If you are, just pull your feet out slightly. Maybe even use some plates next to the bench to raise your feet up. It will lower the size of the arch that you create in the lower back, which also might reduce the stability and the drive. But to get you bench pressing, it's just about getting your body used to being in these positions. They might be a little bit alien to you to start with. So maybe put some plates on the floor, get your feet firmly on the plate. This will pull the hips just from underneath you a little bit, less arch in the back, but it will get you bench pressing to begin with. So you heard me talk about scapular retraction, pulling those shoulder blades in. To be able to do this, you need to have a firm foundation to work with, so make sure that the bar isn't wobbling around everywhere. A great exercise that you can do, again, using super bands, is to anchor them around a frame and do some face pulls. So get those elbows turned up and just get those scapula pulling backwards and really being tucked in behind you, and hold it for a few seconds so you can get used to that squeeze in the upper back. That's the foundation that you're looking for to plant yourself firmly into the bench. Squeeze those shoulder blades together, plant them into your back pockets. You'll have a firm foundation to push from. So elbows. The old elbows, especially as you get older as well, people tend to find that the elbows start to give them a little bit of tennis elbow here and there. And the reason being is because of the angle that you're traveling at. It can be because of how the wrist's loaded and you're stacking the wrist over the elbow too. So if you're starting to find that when you're bench pressing, your elbows are feeling a little bit funky, chances are you've either tucked them in and you're slightly rotating them underneath, or they're slightly externally rotated, so you're flaring them too much. Again, it's loading the elbow and pulling the elbow forwards, and that's not good for the health of the elbow. You want to make sure that it's stacked at around about 45 degrees from the body, traveling in an up and down movement with the wrist stacked over the elbow, and it should eliminate a lot of the elbow pain, activating a lot of the tricep to work when you're pushing at the same time. Another trigger for the elbow can actually be over tight triceps. So something to consider is when you're doing the warm-up phase, so when you're doing your rotator cuff movements, when you're stretching your chest out, stretch your triceps out. Get your arm up and over your head and just give it a good stretch from this position. Even using a super band, drop it behind your back, pull the lower band, so it really over exaggerates the stretch behind the back of the head. And at this point, that stretch there is going to open up the tricep right into this lower lat, into the rear posterior delt, and this is going to free up some range. So as that bar travels down, you've now got the full extension of the tricep to work with, and it's not restricting you from pushing the bar. 2 more to go. Chest stretching. So open the chest up, get the chest working. Use that full range of movement. So lay flat on the floor, arms out to the side, arms diagonally 45 degrees up and down. Rotate both sides. Use the full range of the movement to really open everything up. If you've got tight upper chest, you're going to be finding that the shoulder's trying to curl in. If you've got tight medial pecs, you're going to be finding that you've not got the full openness of the elbow to travel back. So if you've got any kind of port and you notice that there is something that feels a little bit off, more so where the chest meets the delt, the shoulder, at this point you want to open this right the way up and just spend a little bit of time in this area first, just opening this up. That's going to really help you bench pain-free. And last but not least, warm-up sets. So if you can bench press, the best thing to be doing, rather than jumping straight into loading the bench up, you've walked straight into the gym, you're cold, you've not done anything whatsoever. If you're going to go in and you're strapped for time, the best thing you can do, stick at least just a third of the weight on that you'd normally work with. Load the bar up, get in position, unrack the bar, go through the ranges of movement, 4 or 5 reps, re-rack the bar, a little bit more weight, just work into 2 or 3 warm-up sets. You're going to be programming the range of movement, opening everything up, and hopefully pray that nothing else happens. You'll be able to go in quick, effective, and safely. So warm-up sets are key. Even if you are an absolute advanced at this, warm-up sets are a must. Do not jump straight to the top load. So now that you've got your bench press absolutely nailed, YouTube recommends this next video. The algorithm's way smarter than me, so give it a click, see what you think.